bill becomes law, I would like to see government coming up with policies and regulations that encourage and reward coffee farming. We must look at the tax regimes. We must look at incentives. We are talking of expanding this crop to other parts, which are good for growing the crops like Western Kenya, Nyanza, and the like. When that expansion is done, let us have some proper regulation in the industry, let us have some discipline, and let us have the farmer at the center of this enterprise. How much does the farmer take home at the end of the day? We have an agriculture industry that manufactures poverty. People toil, people work very hard. At the end of the day, it's the middlemen who make the money. The farmers don't make the money. I would like to see an improvement in coffee when this law is rolled out to ensure that the farmer is the focus of government. And if there are cartel networks or any formations that relegate the farmer to the periphery and go away with the fat of their labor, such organizations or such formations are deliberately dealt with and extinguished. Agriculture is becoming very unattractive in this country. Critical and important as it is, it's becoming very, very unattractive because of those poor yields and poor returns that the farmers make. You have seen the challenges in the maize sector, where farmers sometimes have ended up with a maize they can't sell because when they try to sell it at what the market is trying to offer after dumping, it becomes a problem. For coffee, I think we should also need to go further and begin having proper brands of Kenyan coffee out there. We should stop being producers of a primary, of a raw material that benefits other people. Kenyan coffee is highly priced, but you find that the benefits of that coffee has not been realized. So I would like to see a situation whereby the government deliberately comes up with a coffee brand that it can promote both locally and internationally, quality coffee, Kenyan coffee, just like we talk of Ethiopian coffee. There's no reason why we can't have Kenyan coffee that is properly promoted, properly branded, properly marketed. There have been comments about sugarcane, creating a very rosy picture about sugarcane. I don't know whether those comments were referring to Kenya or they were referring to another country, because my experience with the sugar industry is that there are major challenges in the sugar industry. The privatization was basically a theft by those who are in good terms with whoever is controlling the state, or whoever are controlling the state, and were facilitated to take over lands and take over coffee, to take over industry. Monopolies are being created. Confusion is the order of the day in the sugar industry. And if you look at even the management of the industry, the sugar industry, there has been a lot of environmental degradation. You look at people who are doing the factories, you don't see the roads being maintained the way they used to be maintained. I would have loved a model that was there when Mumia's Sugar Company was a blue chip company, whereby what was privatized was management, not ownership. I don't see a reason why there was a rush to do what was done without proper studies, without proper public participation. We've got the cases of Miwani, Muhoroni, Nzoia, all are facing confusion. People who supplied, contractors who have been supplying those companies, especially like in Nzoia, many have not been paid, were just chanted out, and companies who have handed over to new owners who have got no regard for these people who have been sustaining these companies. So painting a rosy picture here, like the majority leader has done and Senator Cherargei, I think is a bit dishonest to the people who are feeling the pressure or the impact of the reckless so-called privatization of the sugar industry. The whole program was done in a very reckless manner. Public assets have been taken for song. These lands had proper leases and they had proper commitments that were supposed to be met. And so the dividends to the host communities that the likes of Mumias gave are now a pipe dream. Maybe because sugar is new in some areas, those areas are excited by this new crop. But those areas which have been growing sugar in Nyanza and in Western Kenya have a sour taste in the mouth because the privatization was aimed at enriching a few well-connected individuals who have invested in the industry. It was not aimed at benefiting the farmers. If you look at the model that Mumias had when it was under Buga Tet, the purpose was to create a catalyst for the region, an economic catalyst for the region. And that's why the sugar industry had so many things it did. When you go back to taxation, we still have a lot of taxes in sugar. The farmers are overtaxed, and they hardly have enough to take home at the end of the toil. People are farming because of lack of options. They are farming this crop. And then, of course, we have not yet dealt with the question of dumping sugar in this country that have devastated the industry. So I think that the rosy picture that has been painted here, they cannot stand the test on the ground. Right now, there are motions before the committees. I personally requested for a statement on the privatization. It has taken very long to get anything out of government. Up to now, I think the minister has not shown up to try and own up to what they did. And so until that is done and a proper report is brought to this House from the Committee on Agriculture on the privatization of the sugar factories in Nyanza and Western, I think it would be proper for us not to jump ahead of everybody and begin lauding what's going on. Some issues are too important to be left to political sloganeering. It may be interesting to come up with a political slogan and maybe cheer and sing about things, but we must realize that people are living, real people are being affected by some of these reckless policies that are being made, and so we must come in and look at it. The question of coffee, if I go back to the coffee issue, I would like to see a policy how government is going to address the question of pricing. How government is going to ensure that the coffee farmer, just like any other farmer in Kenya, the farmer in sugarcane, farmer in tea, and all the other cash crops, is protected from the fluctuations in world markets. Is there any plan to have something like a coffee bank or something whereby the government can guarantee the farmers that it will take the crop at a certain price and ensure that it can hold on to the whatever merchandise and make sure that it gets proper markets for the farmers? Otherwise, if we leave the farmer exposed to market forces, the coffee enterprise might turn out to just be another sad affair. We remember that it's not long ago that people began uprooting their coffee plantations in some parts of this country because of poor returns, and we must avoid going there. So as we move out of the AFA, which I agree with the second of the motion that AFA was a big mistake, and return back to the crop-specific acts. We have had now the Sugar Act, we now have the Coffee Act. we take the opportunity to follow through and ensure that when government is implementing this law, it does it in a manner that it brings incentives. We must also look at the products that come out of coffee. What are the other possible products that come out of coffee that can improve the earnings of the farmer? We have talked of coffee being like a tree and a forest. I would like to see, can there be a connection between coffee plantations and maybe carbon credits, so that people commit their land to coffee, do not just wait for the berry, but they can also earn from other things that are available globally. Those kind of incentives, those kinds of interventions, for me, would really contribute to making this crop attractive, making this crop an enterprise that young people will find worthwhile investing in. We have the coffee research stations. An area that is very weak in this country is research and development. How are we going to ensure that we have properly resourced the research institutions to come up with smart crops that can deal with the changes in the environment? Because coffee thrives within a certain environmental conditions which are being altered. How much are we going to dedicate to research and development to ensure that we develop the kind of strands of crop that can withstand the changes in the climate and be able to remain profitable? Finally, we also need to look at consumption of coffee. The average Kenyan takes tea, because coffee was, I think, promoted in a way that tea was the thing for the local people and coffee was for others. So how do we also encourage the drinking of coffee locally to ensure that we have enough local market, a big enough local market to ensure that the coffee farmer thrives? I would like to see policies come up to encourage the drinking of coffee, the taking of coffee, like it is done across the border in Ethiopia. There's a lot of coffee drinking. Locally here, we hardly see people taking coffee. In the comparative, when compared to tea, you'll find that tea is almost taken without even anybody asking about it. But coffee becomes now the crop that is taken by a certain category or certain times. I would like to see that encouragement come up, and maybe that should come up with our own local brands. We should not be having these foreign brands dominating our supermarket shelves. A local brand could come that could be encouraged locally, that could have the benefits, and maybe we see what is going to happen. Finally, I would like to say, Mr. Speaker, as we talk about this crop and in other crops, I would love to see proper soil testing and environmental analysis and a crop map. Can we get a crop map for this country? A map whereby I can know that if I'm in part A of Kenya, this is the kind of soil I expect, this is the kind of crops I can grow, and these are the kind of inputs I may need to be able to succeed in farming. You find we have scanty information about this country in terms of the crops that can be grown where, at what time, and with what kind of inputs. So I'd love that among the rolling out of this thing, the coffee, let us invest also in outreach or extension services, and the research must go beyond just coming up with the crops and also coming up with the analysis of soils and the climates that are available to ensure that we are able to get this country properly on the track to being a major coffee producer, a major industry player globally in terms of coffee, and also to be able to see that our youth look at farming as an option in terms of livelihoods, because it is rewarding. And we also invest in modern machinery and modern technologies for agriculture so that we don't maintain the back-breaking practices of farming, but we move into some modern means of farming that embrace appropriate technologies to be able to push our farmers forward. And I pray that the same be done for all the crops that are growing in this country. And just as this country is being decimated by practices that are not good, mismanagement, I would pray that the people responsible for these crops take it upon themselves to ensure that they understand they are dealing with livelihoods of people, and whatever they do, they should do to advance the prosperity of the farmer and the prosperity of the country. And with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I can say Senator Mukatana would like to contribute, so I'll be magnanimous. And Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks I support, and I congratulate the mediation committee. Thank you.
Senator Okiyah Omtatah, the remarks are actually not few. You have done very well. You did 19 minutes out of 20 that are allowed to you, I believe. Senator Mukatana.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I also want to thank the committee that sat to mediate the coffee bill, Senate Bill number 10 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, the first point I want to make is that every bill that goes to